this to me sounds like the big boss not allowing unionization or something along those lines, not allowing the people to come together because that's competition for the Lord.
I was thinking about reading the Bible. Wrote a song about it. Out of here, here it goes.
Hey, you, yeah, stop the doom scrolling. Watch something with a little bit of meaning. Subscribe and watch. Not a Christian, never read the Bible, and if you haven't either, all you got to do is listen along and you can find out what's in it too. All right, so last chapter we read was chapter 10, Nations Descended from Noah. This chapter, we are going to read the famous story of the Tower of Babel, chapter 11. Let's get started. And let me just go back. In the last chapter, Nations Descended from Noah, they talked about how the sons and descendants of Noah spread out across the land and created all of the different nations, the Canaanites and the other ones. I don't really remember what the other ones were off the top of my head, but all the different nations. And I'm assuming they're basically talking about the Middle East here. All right. Chapter 11, the Tower of Babel. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top to the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." So I guess I did see one movie where I think the whole thing was the people were getting a little bit uppity. They were trying to compare themselves with God. I'm not reading that here yet, but they are saying, "Hey, let's let's build something that's going to last and people are going to remember. Let's make a name for themselves." And this whole "lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth," I guess they wanted to make a name for themselves and so that they would be able to come together and be a one people. That's how I'm reading that. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do." Interesting. So God was kind of proud of them. Or maybe. I haven't got to the next sentence yet. "And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them." Okay. It sounds like God's pretty proud of his creations there. "Come, let us go down there and confuse their language." Okay, stop. This is God talking again with the us. "Come, let us go down there and confuse their language." So basically, it doesn't seem like God is saying, "Hey, I'm proud of these guys. They're doing good things." He's maybe saying, "Hey, they're getting a little too big for their britches. Let's go confuse their language." This aspect of it, I really don't know. Like in all the previous chapters, I do not understand why God has been so, I don't know, competitive with the human race, I guess. Trying to keep them down, no knowledge, getting rid of them, etc. Anyways, going back to the text. "Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." That's a good joke. "So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth." In the notes it says Babel. Babel sounds like the Hebrew word for confused. Therefore its name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. Okay. So the people are saying, hey, let's get together, build a city, unify together, and so that we don't ever get dispersed across the earth. Was there some sort of premonition that they had there? Had this been done before? I don't know. Were they working from experience? I don't know. So, and then God comes down and says, these guys, they're building a city. They're coming together. We need to put a stop to this and confuse their language so that they can't understand each other and disperse them throughout the earth. This to me sounds like the big boss not allowing unionization or something along those lines, not allowing the people to come together because that's competition for the Lord. And I'm going to say this, you know, I, look, when I was a kid and earlier in my life, I used to watch all those ancient alien things. You know, like the aliens came down and you know what was the I can't remember the name of the Aramaics. No, not Aramaics. I don't remember. But there's a lot of theories um, where God, what they say God is in the Bible isn't necessarily God. It's maybe some superior race or something like that. To me, that makes a lot of sense in the way things are described here and other parts of the Bible. That that they're afraid of the people coming together and competing, I guess, with their power or influence or something along those lines. God, in my opinion, would not be intimidated by the people coming together, would not be. I mean, God is on a different plane than the rest of us here. He's not worried about the people coming together and 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 getting too powerful in his eyes. Whereas some other superior race that was controlling the people, they very well might be intimidated or feel like that is competition. So just throwing it out there. Next chapter or next paragraph. Shem's descendants. These are the generations of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he fathered Arpachshad. Ah, Arpachshad, 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he fathered Arpachshad 500 years. Wait a minute. Before, God said he was going to limit man's life to 120 years, and now we've got Shem living to 600 years old. And he had other sons and daughters. Okay. Maybe, okay, hold on a second. Maybe this works out because Shem was already alive when God made that decree. So maybe he was grandfathered in, literally grandfathered in to live long life. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah, and Arpachshad lived after he fathered Shelah 403 years and had sons and daughters. Now, okay, what I just said totally doesn't make sense now because Arpachshad was Arpachshad, Arpachshad lived, almost 500 years, and he was certainly born after the flood. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber. And Shelah lived after he fathered Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered, well, they're definitely getting to know their wives a lot sooner now. They're not waiting hundreds of years, 30 years, 35 years, 34 years. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg. And Eber lived after he fathered Peleg 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he fathered Reu. And Peleg lived after he fathered Reu 209 years. Now they are getting younger. And had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he fathered Serug. And Reu lived after he'd fathered Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. And when Serug had lived 30 years, he fathered Nahor. And Serug had lived after he fathered Nahor 200 years and had other sons and daughters. And when Nahor lived 29 years, he fathered Terah. And Nahor lived after he fathered Terah 119 years. And he had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Okay. So maybe God put that condition in and it kind of gradually took effect over time, because definitely these guys are going from 600 years to 400 years to 300 years to 200 years to 119 years. So they are dying a lot younger over time. Next section, Terah's descendants. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran fathered Lot. I've heard that name before. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah. The daughter of Haran and the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren, she had no child. Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai and his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan, where they came to Haran. They settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And that's the end of that chapter. This covered a lot. We covered the Tower of Babel, which basically is literally one paragraph. Okay. And then we went on to Shem's descendants and Terah's descendants. So basically we saw that it seemingly God didn't like the competition of man coming together, and he put a wrench into that. And we also saw Shem's descendants getting younger and younger when they died. So that whole thing of I'm only going to let people live to 120 years, apparently it didn't happen immediately. I guess maybe the genetics had to go out over time, but the code was in place, and it was definitely, by the time we got down here to Nahor, he only lived to be about 130, 40 years. And then we have Terah's descendants, who I'm assuming are going to be the descendants of Canaan. I'd have to look and follow this back. But they went into the land of Canaan and lived there for a bit, and that's it. I don't know. Very confusing. Hopefully next chapter will be a little bit less confusing. This is all very confusing. There's a lot packed into very small amount of space here. The next chapter is chapter 12, the call of Abram. See you then. New chapters every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Gotta have a friend in Jesus.